This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Elvir Causevic runs a boutique investment bank in San Francisco. But this is not your staid, buttoned-down banker. At night, Mr. Causevic runs a wisdom school. An inventor with more than 30 patents, who pioneered brain scan devices while at Yale, he says he's now focused on helping bring living wisdom back into daily lives. Elvir Causevic is our guest on this edition of Bizgnus Interviews. You're talking about relieving stress, but don't we need stress in our daily lives to succeed?
It's all about balance. Having some stress in life is normal. Of course, it's normal. It's we're anxious before we give a presentation. We're paying attention when we're driving. We're having a difficult conversation with our teenage child, right? We need all of our senses. We need a little bit of that extra awareness that we get from some of the stress responses, right? When we're stressed, we get the adrenaline and the cortisol and the steroids and anticoagulants because we think our arm is going to get chopped off by the saber-toothed tiger. The problem is that it's really the amount and the degree and the persistence of stress that we have that's unhealthy for us, and frankly unnecessary. It doesn't really provide any value.
So you are talking about going back to ancient remedies, or at least ideas from our ancestors. Tell us about that.
Sure. So look, I'm an entrepreneur and a businessman. I was a professor at Yale early in my career. That was one of my most stressful days of my life. I was hired at Yale, and like within the first week, you meet all the faculty and you give your new faculty presentation. So I studied engineering and mathematics, and two of the people that invented the fields that I was in, they both got the Marshall Field Medal for mathematics. They were in the audience, and I'm thinking, it's one thing to impress people who don't know anything about this. It's a whole another thing to impress these guys. So very quickly I stopped trying to impress them, and my bar was, don't get fired and don't say something stupid, because I couldn't go back in front of my mom. That was what was in the back of my head, because I was happy to go to Yale, but my mom was ecstatic, and I couldn't go back to her. Had they fired me on that day, which was a possibility, I would have to be like one of those movies. What's that movie where the guy goes to work? He's been long fired, but he makes his lunch and takes his bag, goes to work, and comes back for 2 years. So that's from those days. I remember having serious stress, right? Very, very early in my career, and it kind of never left. And as I looked at various teachings and I went through, I tried real therapy and antidepressants and anti-anxiety drug and this and that and the other, and frankly it just didn't work. The response to stress was just too strong. And where I found personally some relief, if you will, is by going back slowly and doing a deeper and deeper dive across some of these first ancient religions and traditions, and then the current religions that are around the world. Not just the first thing you read in the Bible, and not the first thing you read in the Quran or Bhagavad Gita or anything like that, but go a few steps behind. Go dig a little bit deeper and see, what does this story mean, and where did it come from, and like that. And especially probably the biggest inspiration was in the indigenous cultures. In particular, I live here in San Francisco, so the Northwest tribes just seemed. When I met a number of people from the various tribal communities and read quite a bit, and had the opportunity to be with people and just learn, right? Just ask questions, be quiet, and learn. It made a lot of sense to me. So the idea that I wanted to do is, boy, this is literally right under my nose. Why don't more people know about this? Starting with my own kids. I have 4 kids. Starting with my family, right? I'm Bosnian originally. I have a big family. And then starting with my closest friends. That was the idea behind the whole UpEnd story and everything.
As you looked at the indigenous people and what they had practiced centuries ago, what was the most important thing that you found that would apply to life in the 21st century?
One of the teachers we have at UpEnd, the School of Living Wisdoms that we put together, is Dr. Anita Sanchez. And I really enjoy working with her. She's got deep tradition in her own tradition, Aztec and Nahua, and has has been kind of in the spiritual community, if you will, for many years. And then in parallel, she has a PhD in organizational development and really understands how people work, how people tick, and how they work together, and has worked for some of the world's largest corporations for 30 plus years. And one of the things she teaches, and I learned from her, is this concept of one hoop of life and how we're all related. And of course, I kind of knew this, right? I knew it from the Bible, from the Quran, I kind of knew it, but I didn't really get it. And I got it by this explanation that we really are interconnected. And if you just look at nature, of course, a tree is different from a deer and from a bird. Anybody can tell that. But they're all related. They all live in an ecosystem together, and they all share, and they don't really trade with each other like humans do, right? Like if I do you some favor, whether I say something or not, you'll feel obligated to reciprocate and do me back some favor. And that's not really how nature works. And indigenous cultures are keen observers of nature and humans. And one of the things I learned is in this big one hoop of life, it's about you giving into the hoop and then receiving from the hoop of life. So you're in relationship. So first thing, you're in relationship with the entire ecosystem that's around you. And the second you're in a relationship, you're not alone. And that's the number one stressor, is kind of this sense of I got to do this on my own. I'm alone, I'm by myself, I got to do it by myself. And it's not true. So I've taken kind of the Western culture that I grew up in to the extreme, and I've taken the idea of individualism and personal responsibility to the extreme. Now, I understand where the concepts of individualism and personal responsibility came from, right? That makes sense to me, right? We need to do our thing, right? I have 4 kids. I've had to teach that lesson for 25 years now, right? You gotta do your own. I'm not gonna do it. You gotta do it. You are responsible. You're an individual. But I think we've taken it. I know I've taken it too far to say it's all on my shoulders, and it's not true. I'm not raising my kids by myself, right? Obviously, there are 2 parents, their grandparents, their aunts, uncles, cousins, their neighbors, their teachers, their friends. So as a community, we're raising these kids. So not all of the burden is on me here. And that one big thing, that the fact that we're in one big hoop of life, that we're all in relationship with each other, and that rather than putting focus on how do I get to be a better dad or a better businessman or a better it's all on me, it's all on my shoulders. I'm saying, wait a minute, how about I engage the community here? That's actually a better use of my time.
How you have put this into a school or a company, I'm not sure which to call it, called
Think of it as a
UpEnd.
nonprofit school.
Would you tell us about UpEnd? What got you to found it, and what does it mean?
Sure. I saw in my own life things that I thought were unique to me, right? The stresses of life, of work and kids. And, I grew up in Bosnia. We had a war in the 1990s. I missed that war. I was an exchange student here accidentally. I was an exchange student in a small town in Missouri, in Aurora, Missouri. I was the Aurora Hound Dog my senior year of high school. But my family stayed home and struggled. And there was no telling there was going to be war. Like with Ukraine, we had a little, we knew a little bit, like it was kind of, they took Crimea a few years ago. And then there was some, there were a number of fights on the border, and it would kind of show up in the news. So when when the war finally broke out, it suddenly broke my heart, because I know what those people are going through. But more importantly, it wasn't that big of a surprise. You could kind of do the math and figure out, yeah, this is likely to happen. In Bosnia, it was a total shock, right? I mean, it was like a September 11th kind of a thing, right? So on September 10th, nothing. On September 11th, I remember I was teaching a class in Yale, at Yale, and that morning, at the end of my class, somebody said there was some, accident in New York City. I was like, it's probably some airplane fell down, terrible things. But nobody knew it was September 11th, and nobody knew the world would change. And that's kind of how the war happened in Bosnia. So I thought, okay, but I have war trauma, right? From survivor trauma, survivor's guilt, all of these different things. So I thought I was, as always, I thought I was somewhat special. Don't we all think we're somewhat special? But it turns out my stress was garden variety stress like anybody else's. And as I talked to my friends and family, a lot of them, especially in the business community, they wouldn't really own up to it because it's kind of not manly in today's world, right? My male friends, right? My successful female executives, they didn't want to own up to it. They didn't want to show up weak. You don't talk about stress. You don't talk about being tired. You talk about being tough and traveling and all of this. But as you get to know people a little bit and they open up more, what became obvious to me, number one, is a lot of us are dealing with a lot of the same things. And whether your stress is coming from just starting in your career or losing a job or being up for promotion or being very successful but making changes in your life, or everything is going well except at work, but at home it's not going so well. The stressors might be different, but we're all dealing with kind of a similar, similar kinds of things in higher or lower degrees. And the idea is, when I looked into it, it's really kind of, I don't know how to say it nicely, but it's like the way we live, the way we set up our lives. We're out of balance, we're out of whack, right? We're not spending enough time with friends and family. A lot of us are not paying attention to our own health, right? What we eat and how we exercise and all of this. And then we like to take things to the extreme. We get hooked on these political things that we see on TV, right? On Fox and CNN, whatever, all these different things. It doesn't matter if you're left, right, up, down, green, orange, what color you are, persuasion. Nobody's winning here. And I thought what we need to do is we need to upend kind of how we've set this up, because the only thing in our way is us. I mean, look at America, right? I came into this country as a kid, right, 30 some odd years ago. And I've had the opportunity to, meet America from all kinds of different angles. And it is a great country. It's going through changes, and it has been. But a lot of the problems we have right now are kind of self-inflicted. At the country level, at the people level, I mean, we're just not getting along, right? And what are we really fighting about? It's not that we're fighting and having a reasonable discussion about issue 1 or issue 2 or issue 3. We're not even fighting. We're just yelling at each other. So this is kind of a self-made problem. And as in an individual, so in the family, so in the society, so in our country here, I thought it was time to upend the way we're talking to each other. So that was the idea behind the school. The concept of the school is really to be a community and to bring people together to talk thoughtfully, to share what's going on, to not be attacked for your opinions, to not for people who approach you to try to understand what you're trying to say, not to try to sell you on any one particular thing, and then do all of it together with the help of 8 or going on 10 now teachers, senior teachers, elders who've been around, who've seen this rodeo before, and who come from very diverse backgrounds.
And you're an entrepreneur. You certainly have experience in starting businesses and growing them. How has this grown? Is it at where you want it to be?
It is. It's not a business. That's first, right? So we're not selling any. That's not the point, right? I work on Wall Street. I run an investment bank. Every hour spent at UpEnd is a tremendous waste of money. But it's not about the money, right? You wouldn't believe how many people I work with on Wall Street that by the time you and I have coffee, they've made $1 billion. And I can't tell you that many of them are that life is working. Business is working, but I can't tell that life is necessarily working. So as I look at all corners of society, like the little city in Missouri where I grew up, all the way to Wall Street or downtown San Francisco here, where I just took my son to school this morning, it's not like there's winners and losers. Financially, yes, there are winners and losers, but in terms of quality of life, it's really losers and losers, right? It's how can I be happy? Give me untold billions of dollars today. If I have to drive my son to school and I drive by 25 homeless people that are the age between me and my mom, and they're struggling, they're on the street, I don't know how I can be happy. That doesn't work for me, right? Doesn't matter. I can have my little bubble, I can build my little bubble, but that's not a life I want to live.
So you are essentially attempting to change some really fundamental problems in our society.
Absolutely. And I've taken a hard look and said, what should I do? Here's, one guy, right? Bosnian immigrant, refugee, been here, did, something with my life by American dream standards. What's the best use of my time going forward? Is it, to keep doing exactly what I'm doing on Wall Street and technology and all of this? Yes, that's good. Keep that, be a good dad, doing the best I can. I don't know. Right now, polls are really important. So you see every day the polls are going up and down. Is it Biden? Is it Democrats? Is it Republicans? Whatever. I wonder if you polled my kids, what my numbers would look like. But I think they change day by day anyways.
I think we keep the pollsters away from the kids. That's one of the first things, I think.
Rule number one. But as I looked at where I could have the most impact, what are the options? Everybody knows the options. You can do something with politics. You can donate money. You can be on the boards. I've done, several of those things. But I thought the most important thing I could do is educate, right? Educate, and not myself as the guru, right? God forbid, right? I'm no guru. My family knows that better than anybody. But what I have been blessed with is to be with humble teachers who are not kind of grabbing the spotlight and the microphone for their own self-promotion, but who are out there on the ground, changing people's lives every day. And so I created, think of it as kind of a teachers collective. And the beginning set of teachers is the people I personally worked with, right? So I know all of them. And I said, let me, step one, keep it simple. Let me just work with the people I know and trust and just make them available to my friends and family and coworkers and everybody else. And then let's all engage in a discussion about what do we do with aging parents? What do we do with problems with our teenage kids? What do we do with stress in our lives? Right? How do we make ourselves tick well so that we can be useful to our family, we can be useful to our friends, we can be useful to our communities, to our jobs, and like that.
Where can our viewers and listeners get more information about UpEnd and what you're doing?
Sure. It's very simple. It's at upend.com. So the word upend, like turn things on its head. How do we upend what's not working? And it's upend.com. There's a website, and there's a whole variety of free events and newsletters, and we're all over social media as UpEnd as well. And the idea is we're always thinking. We just had a big teacher meeting yesterday. We're just thinking, what's the value we can gift to the community? What's the value we can give to the community, right? All the teachers are very successful. They've had successful lives here. Now we want to make sure the organization is self-sustaining. So we do have paid classes, but the idea is, how they do in Silicon Valley, they call it the freemium model. So you give a lot of things for free, and then you have a few things that are called premium. But basically we have this one class that's 90 days. It's called the opening. So we have the teachers, we meet one weekend and take a break for a month, and another weekend and take a break for a month, another weekend. We meet 90 days because neuroscience tells us that's how long it takes to create a habit. And then in these, meetings for 3 days at a time, or 3 half days at a time, we spend time talking with each other, talking to people, with all the teachers there. And then they deliver little lectures, right, on reciprocity, on courage, on respect, on consent, on boundaries, on forgiveness, like that. And then between these lectures, people work with the coach one-on-one. So you can really build these habits into your life.
Is there anything that you would like to add that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
Yeah, an invitation for people to take a look at their life and see if they're accepting life as it's kind of thrown at them, or if they truly feel they have the power to make simple changes for themselves first, right, and then for their family first, right, and then for their little community of friends and family and coworkers, and with that will change the society. So the invitation is to start with yourself and say, is my life as I have it right now working or not working, first for me and then for others.
You've been watching the Biz News Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.